2001 wasn't just a year, it was the year for Bernard Hopkins. A year where his mastery of the sport, his razor-sharp ring intelligence, and his legendary toughness would be on full display. It was the year when the world would realize that Bernard Hopkins was a step ahead of everyone in the division. The year when the executioner would carve his name even deeper into the annals of boxing history with his fights against Holmes and Trinidad. This was the year when he would prove, without a doubt, that he was the best middleweight of his time. April of 2001 brought Hopkins face-to-face with Keith Holmes. Holmes, a former world champion, was no stranger to the big stage. And while many saw Hopkins as the favorite, Holmes' experience and reputation made him a worthy challenger. This was no easy test for Bernard, but he was ready for the challenge. From the opening bell, it was clear that Bernard Hopkins was in control. His defense was as tight as ever, and his jab was a weapon that Holmes couldn't seem to avoid. Hopkins outboxed him with precision and patience, refusing to let Holmes mount any significant offense. It wasn't about brute force, it was about outsmarting his opponent, and Hopkins did so with ease. Round after round, Bernard continued to chip away at Holmes. When the final bell rang, it was no surprise to anyone that Bernard Hopkins had earned a unanimous decision victory. He had outclassed Keith Holmes over 12 rounds, never giving him a real opportunity to shine. But Bernard Hopkins wasn't done yet. The real test awaited him in September of that year, a fight that would change the trajectory of his career forever. September 29, 2001, Madison Square Garden. The stage was set for one of the most anticipated fights in boxing history. Bernard Hopkins, the middleweight champion, faced the undefeated Felix Trinidad. Trinidad, the pride of Puerto Rico, was a powerhouse, a fighter with speed, power, and a legacy of his own. Many thought he was the best in the world, but Bernard Hopkins was determined to prove he was the best middleweight of all time. Hopkins was a man on a mission. Round after round, he outclassed Trinidad. Tito's punches landed, but Hopkins absorbed them with ease, quickly returning fire. His precision was surgical, his strategy flawless. He wore Trinidad down, relentlessly pressing the attack and never allowing his opponent to find any rhythm. And then, in the 12th round, it happened. Bernard Hopkins delivered a final crushing blow that sent Trinidad to the canvas. It wasn't just a knockout, it was a statement. Bernard Hopkins had done what no one thought possible. He had stopped Felix Trinidad and claimed the undisputed middleweight championship of the world. Hopkins had done the impossible. He unified the four major titles, WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO, becoming the undisputed middleweight champion. It was a feat that hadn't been accomplished in over a decade, and it cemented Bernard Hopkins' legacy as one of the greatest middleweights to ever step into the ring. And here's the kicker. Bernard Hopkins was 36 years old. In a sport where youth often reigns supreme, Hopkins proved that age is no barrier to greatness. His victories were more than just impressive. They showcased a fighter whose knowledge of the sport had reached a level few could ever attain. By the end of 2001, there was no question who the best fighter in the world was. Bernard Hopkins had earned his title as Fighter of the Year, not just for his victories against Holmes and Trinidad, but for the way he dominated them.